Holy crap, there's so much stuff to cover for E3 that I haven't done my hair. It's still light outside, and my kids are still awake. Super magical news time. Beep 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 beep. Welcome everybody to Super Magical News Time. We've got so much to cover because of E3 this week. I've literally got pages of notes. I'm sorry ahead of time if I miss anything from these particular conferences. I'm not very good at taking notes, as you might be able to see here. And there was just so much covered. So, we're gonna start with the big three. Starting with the ones who went first, Microsoft and the Xbox One. In general, Microsoft's show was pretty awesome. Aside from the cringy moments where they really try to shoehorn in celebrities that are pretending to be geeks and whatnot. As far as what they featured through the show, it was all pretty good for the console market. There was a reoccurring theme there, though, that it seems that most of their games are going to be cross-platform now, and that if you buy one for Xbox, it will also be available for PC, which is awesome. It's probably been news for a little while, but I haven't kept very close track of the Xbox One and its exploits lately, so it's news to me. During the conference, Microsoft did announce the Xbox One Slim at $300 and the Scorpio, the enthusiast Xbox that will be capable of not only video in 4K, but actual gaming in 4K. I believe the price point that I've seen speculated for that starts at $600, but that sounds like that's pretty optimistic, to be perfectly honest. As far as the games that were covered, we got to see Gears of War, full of cringy dialogue and uncomfortable situations and lots of hand-holding. I'm personally not a big fan of Gears of War, never have been a big fan of Gears of War. It's not a popular opinion at all. I don't know, it just didn't do anything for me. Forza looked beautiful, though, to follow Gears of War. It's my understanding it's supposed to be an open-world driving sim, which is kind of what the Crew was supposed to be, but it never quite got its stuff together. Next up was Recore. It appeared that there were 4 different protagonists available, 3 robots and 1 presumably human, I'm assuming female. We had news on Final Fantasy 15, which was, for the Final Fantasy 15 playthrough, we basically watched a man get butt in front of millions of people by a giant fist. It was pretty terrible. I don't know if they rigged that so that the person would win, but it looked like he did next to nothing to blow off that giant's arm. The game looks neat. We'll see how it goes. We got more footage of The Division Underground, which The Division itself has lost something upwards of 90% of its player base recently because of a lack of fresh content. Does not bode well for The Division Underground. Now, I am not a big fan of big-name first-person shooters, but Battlefield 1 looks amazing. I believe it's supposed to be an alternate history, exploding zeppelins and punching Nazis, and it looked like good old fun instead of this hyper-serious, gritty thing that we've been dealing with since Modern Warfare accidentally was a thing. Then we moved on to some reveals about Minecraft. I wasn't particularly excited about Minecraft myself. They announced dedicated servers, realms, cross-platform, but it kind of feels like at this point they're beating a dead horse or beating a dead notch. I'm not sure which. We got to see some looks into some VR games. Eagle Flight looked amazing. The people who made Limbo are making a game called Inside, and I believe Limbo was running free for a little while, if not still. We got to see a compilation of a lot of different indie games, smaller titles that will be available for the Xbox One. Games like Cuphead, which looks amazing. It's hand animated, I do know that. The Culling, Deliver the Moon, Bloodstained, they all looked pretty neat, honestly. I'd play just about any one of them in that particular reel. And then we wrapped up with Tekken 7, Scalebound, which everybody was super excited about. The crowd blew up. Sea of Thieves, where you get to roleplay as a pirate in an MMO format. I personally would eat that up. I love the idea of that. But most excitedly, We Happy Few. The game seemed to have somewhat of a BioShock kind of vibe. Our primary protagonist refused to take their medication and slowly watches the veil of beauty and happiness slip around them as they see a world of poverty and violence and ick in general before it's cut off. It looks super exciting. After the Microsoft show, I did catch a little bit of the Ubisoft show, which was pretty cool because we got to see South Park, The Fractured But Whole, as well as some really cool stuff like Star Trek VR, and Aisha Tyler was a very pleasant break after some of the more awkward situations with the actors on the Microsoft stage. Up next was the PlayStation show. I actually saw the PlayStation show after the Nintendo show. Still didn't take anything away from it, as excited as I was for the Nintendo show. The PlayStation show was on point. Before, we got to take a look at games like Abzu, an underwater sandbox-style exploration game, Bound, a beautiful-looking game following the third-person perspective of a ballet dancer, Hawken, which I'm not too sure why anybody would be excited about Hawken. It's been out for PC for 3 years, and it's been abandoned for probably 2 of them. And then Pyre, a very colorful co-op dungeon crawler, hack and slash looking kind of game. It looked pretty neat. I'm willing to give it a try anyways. But straight into the Sony show, we start with an orchestra. It was amazing. And of course, they open up with God of War. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this new God of War is supposed to be, if it's a reboot or if it's a transition straight through from God of War 3. I can see how they could play that. He's killed enough gods in one religion. He's killed gods in another religion, or mythos, or whatever you'd care to call it. In the demo, Kratos kills a troll and mentors a small child. It's emotional and touching, and for once we can actually feel a little something for Kratos instead of being scared shitless of him. We got to see a little bit of Days Gone By in a trailer format. Later in the show, they showed some gameplay. I've never seen so many zombies on screen at once, and that's something quite exciting in the world of gaming. Being able to put that many physical entities on screen at once without crashing your device has been somewhat of an issue in the past. It even made games like Dead Rising look like they were skimping on the zombies, honestly. Then we saw a little something about The Last Guardian. Sony just probably dangling more footage in front of us before they lock it back down for another. What the shit? They announced a date. They announced a date for The Last Guardian, people. For real. It's coming out in October. We saw a little bit of gameplay from Horizon Zero Dawn, a red-headed, Norse-looking, attractive female going around killing robot dinosaurs with robot bows and electricity and sweet wires and whatnot. Immediately after Horizon Zero Dawn was Detroit Become Human, where we saw something along the lines of some kind of cinematic, very heavy rain-esque decision tree that we could go through. I don't know if we can necessarily rewind time or if they were just creatively showing us all the paths that we could take. But it's a decision-based game, and if you can truly affect the game so drastically based off of your decisions, it seems like it might actually be an exciting game to not only play once, a lot of these narrative games you play once, but play through multiple times and discover all the various endings that you might have to offer. As fun as Telltale games generally are, they always seem to end in the same place. We also saw Resident Evil 7, I believe it was Resident Evil Biohazard possibly there. The most PT-looking game ever. I actually even watched Jacksepticeye play through the demo, which is available on PlayStation 4 right now. It again felt very PT. It wasn't quite as terrifying as PT was. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful game. I don't know what their angle is with Resident Evil Biohazard or Resident Evil 7, but I'm willing to give it a try, and I haven't been interested in one since Resident Evil 4 myself. But then we also got a hard date of PlayStation VR on October 13th. I believe that might have been tossed around before, but Sony also tacked on to the end of that. By the end of the year, or through the end of the year, PlayStation VR will have 50 plus games in its library, including games like Farpoint, a space rail shooter it looked like, Battlefront, an X-Wing VR mission, Batman Arkham VR, a Final Fantasy 15-bit, Call of Duty Infinite, and more. Aside from that, we did also see some pretty big teasers, kind of squashed a little bit. I believe everybody was excited to hear about a Crash Bandicoot game. It's not going to be a game. Crash Bandicoot is coming to Skylanders. Two of the things that got me really excited in the end of this show, the Spider-Man trailer that we got to see. I can't wait for a good Spider-Man game. It was just a cinematic trailer. We didn't get to see gameplay, but I'm going to be keeping my eyes peeled for a new Spider-Man, PS4 exclusive, made by Insomniac. The other thing that I was super excited about near the end of this show was Death Stranding, Kojima's new horror game that basically took PT under its own wing. We even still have Norman Reedus featured in the trailer, and people are surmising that this is something that happens in the future, that Norman Reedus' character is dead or he's been sucked through a black hole. And finally, but definitely not leastly, was Nintendo's show. Now, Nintendo opted to spend quite a bit of time focusing on Pokemon Sun and Moon, and I'm going to be honest with you, I am not the man with all the knowledge, and I know that the Pokemon community is very tightly focused on the details. I don't have a lot of those for you, and we got to see quite a bit of gameplay. I think they did about 30 minutes. It looks great. Honestly, I would give it a try, but I'm not sure that Pokemon is ever going to be quite what Red and Blue and Yellow were. Legend of Zelda and the Breath of the Wild. Now, I played Skyward Sword, and I was so disappointed with how much back and forth it was over the same stretch of 20 feet. I was giddy as a schoolgirl to see that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is not only going to be an open world, non-linear kind of thing, but they've also gone as far as to adding diverse weapons that you can pick up off of enemies, items that you can equip on and off of Link, including clothing. There were so many things. I was watching it all day. There's cooking and crafting, and it's like they took the best part of the graphics from Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword and meshed them together. It's a beautiful game. It's different. It's finally different, but it's still Zelda. It's the first time in a long time I've seen a game and I've been genuinely almost angry that I can't play it right now. Before we get into the smaller tasty bits here, I just want to say to Nintendo, PlayStation, and Microsoft, whatever disagreements I might have had with consoles for the previous years, I feel like you guys are doing a great job now. I don't feel like consoles sit so far below PC. Still PC Master Race, don't get me wrong, but you guys, for the first time in a long time, are putting out stuff that I'm excited to see, that I'm excited to play. There's some cool stuff on the horizon, guys. You did a fantastic job, and this is the first time in a long time at E3 I felt like a kid again, excited every minute of every show that I was watching, for sure. But to touch on a few of the other juicy bits that I caught between E3 and the time of the recording here, Overwatch, McCree, and Widow have been nerfed. McCree's damage for Fan the Hammer has been turned down significantly, thank God. And Widow, it's not so much a damage nerf as much as it is she has to stay scoped for a little bit longer. So I suppose that might be a little bit of a damage nerf. Warframe is one of our favorite games, so we do have to toss it in there. They got a sports ball mode. Woo! Sports ball. Gonna have to give that a try here pretty soon. And I suck at notes. Unfortunately, Oculus has been caught buying off developers for their VR market. We were hoping that Microsoft would announce that they were going to establish their own sort of VR. We think they might be establishing more of a partnership with the Oculus. PlayStation VR is its own device, of course, and then there is also the HTC Vive. Unfortunately, Oculus was caught buying developers specifically for exclusive rights to games just for the Oculus VR, which is unfortunate because Oculus has been doing some shady work. They even explicitly said that they would not be buying off developers. I think that's all that I have for now. There's so much that I missed. There are so many things for E3. Let me know if there's anything that you'd like to know about. If you like it, you know what to do, so do it, and we'll see you next Super Magical News Time.